Hey people, hello, good morning. In this particular session, we are going to study about phonology. Right? So, phonology, in other words, it is also called as the voice and accent. I mean, there are students around the world who also call this topic as the pronunciation lessons. Right? So, phonology, voice and accent, or the pronunciation, it is known by these different names. However, when you speak of it, um, the most common expectation for the people is that you should be able to speak in a neutral accent, right? And you should be able to teach how to pronounce the words. Okay, when you say, I can teach you phonology, or when you say, I can teach you voice and accent, or when you say, I can teach you pronunciation, foreign students, they are going to understand it like you would be able to help them to learn, practice, and understand, memorize how to produce different sounds which are there in English, right? Now, there is a very important question. Why is this phonology lesson even there? Okay? The answer is quite simple, right? So you see, in English, I'm sure you people are aware of that very well, that in English we have 26 letters, right? However, if you count the number of sounds which are there in English, so there are 44 sounds in English language. So you see, 26 letters versus 44 sounds. So there are a lot of letters that represent different sounds, right? For example, letter A. So in the word avocado or apple, this letter A, it represents the A sound. On the other hand, in word car, the letter A represents A sound. Then in the word ball or call, the same letter A, it represents the O sound. And then in the word about, right? So in this word, the letter A, it represents just the simple sound. You see, one letter representing four sounds. A, 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 O, right? So a lot of times for the foreign students, it is actually very difficult for them to produce these sounds. Yeah. And they need some teacher, a professional teacher who can help them with learning these sounds, right? So that is where the need is. And fortunately for us, Indian people, for us, things are pretty simple, right? In my understanding, Indian people or Indian students can mimic almost any accent in the world, name, because our languages are very good. Our native languages, our regional languages, in terms of the linguistic approach, in terms of the theory of linguistic or how language works or the different sounds that a human mouth can produce. In all these things, our languages are much better. Okay? So I come to know this from one of my students. Okay? She told that give me a second here. Yes, so one of my student who is from Tamil Nadu, she told me that there are 247 letters in Tamil language. 247 letters in Tamil language, right? Huge, right? So that's the thing. And in other languages as well, or if we know, or if we just take the case of the very common language Hindi, you know? So even in Hindi, we have this Varnamala, right? And then there are swars and vyanjans, right? So we have this aha, and then we have these consonant sounds, right? Those are like k, k, g, g, na, p, p, b, bh, na, y, r, l, v, sh, right? something like that. Okay, even I'm not fully aware, or I'm not fully able to recall these letters, but you're aware that we have these different consonants, and we also get to practice. Like, for example, if you're learning the p consonant, so we practice it like p, pa, pe, pe, pai, pau, pum, pa, right? So for us Indian speakers, our languages are very rich in terms of their approach, in terms of their reach to the sounds, right? Our languages are very rich. So for us people, it's quite easy to learn any other sound, any other pronunciation in the world and mimic that. However, for foreign people, that is not the case. Right? A lot of people have their first language in which they don't have many sounds which are there in English language, right? So, for example, if you take the case of Russian language, so I believe Russian language is more driven by consonant clusters. Okay? Russian language, I think, is more driven by consonant clusters. Right? On the other hand, Russian language or our Indian languages, these languages are, we can say, are polysyllabic. Yeah, that means every syllable in the language is stressed equally, and we pronounce them equally. However, English is a monosyllabic language. That means in English language, in a word, there is usually the main stress is there only on one syllable, right? So that is something why what we should know before we go ahead and jump into this phonology lesson. Right? Now, why people or students across the world want to learn phonology. In- there are multiple reasons. One of them is the uncomfortable experience that the listener gets. If you have an accent, if for example I'm speaking something like the way I'm going to speak now, you see, speaking in English would have very many benefits, and if you are able to speak in a very good English, then I think you have a lot of scope in the future, right? So if I speak something like that with that kind of an accent or any other regional accent that we have in India or around the world, so it is not comfortable for the listener to listen to this person, right? Oh, like we have a lot of accents in India. North, like people from the northern side of India, people from the southern side, people from, let's say, Gujarat, Rajasthan, people from Maharashtra, right? So a lot of different accents are there. And that accent or the first language influence, if it is visible in English speech, then we can say you have a mother tongue influence, right? So for example, I was listening to this person one day, and the way he spoke was something like this. I tried calling him, but he did not even lift the call. He did not lift the call only. He did not lift the call. I tried calling him, but no user. So something like that. So if you listen to these different people with accents, it's first of all for the listener, it is not comfortable, right? And people in India, at least in the big cities in India, they want to speak in a neutral accent so that they can make a better impression. Right? Now we all know that in India also we have a lot of startups coming, and these startup, the startup culture, all these people, they want to learn advanced skills so that they can be able to speak or communicate with people across the globe, maybe encourage them for the investment in their companies and stuff. So a lot of reasons are there why people would now want to learn how to speak in a neutral accent. Okay? And the other thing is, imagine yourself, in a new city, and this person that you ask for some directions, if he is having very strong first language influence. Okay? So comparatively, if you speak with this person who has this very strong first language influence versus someone else who has neutral accent, okay? If you compare that, which one do you think you would be able to trust more, right? Let's say you come to Mumbai or Pune and you ask me for some directions, and I say something like, "Oh, you want to go to MG Road? MG Road is go straight and then take right. Take right and go straight again only. Only go again right, and then you see big square there, and take left from there, and MG Road there." Right? Versus if I speak with you, or there's someone else who is speaking with you, "Oh, you want to go to MG Road? I see. So it's like around 2 kilometers away from here. You need to go straight, take right, and then don't turn anywhere. Reach the square or the circle that you see, and then you have to take left, and there is MG Road. Right? What do you think? Which person would you be able to trust more easily? If it's, let's say, the last option for you, if it's maybe 11 or 12 at night and you're lost, okay, and you meet these two people, which one would you be able to trust more easily, right? So accent, like people with accent or their very first language influence, they give they give a very different or weird impression, right? For the listener, they might feel that this person, who has that very strong accent or the first language influence, people think that this person has no exposure to people from different regions or people from different countries, has no exposure to advanced culture, or maybe to, let's say, English material or Hollywood movies, right? His exposure or his world is very much limited to his own community, to his own region or the regional language, right? And therefore, a lot of trust issues happen. Right? So we should, at any cost, avoid making such an impression. Right? Now, the next thing is, need of correct pronunciation skills. Right? So, as I mentioned earlier, if you are able to speak with neutral pronunciation or with neutral accent, it's quite easy for you to gain or win the trust of people, right? And one more thing that I want to explain about the scope of teaching voice and accent or phonology pronunciation. Okay? Now, you know that I worked in Russia. It's a country where, no, although it's a white country of white people, but you see their economy is purposefully underdeveloped, right? So because of these sanctions from the North Atlantic countries, the Russian economy is, we can say, not fully developed. You cannot count Russia as first world country, right? They are still, we can say, underdeveloped or developing country, right? So in a country or in an economy like that, where I worked, things you can see are, quite very interesting when it comes to teaching phonology or voice and accent. So the schools where I worked, there were teachers who used to teach only voice and accent, only the phonology part, and they would come to the school only on Saturdays and Sundays. They would teach two batches, 3 hours each, maybe 9 to 12, and then maybe 2 to 5, something like that, and they would make quite a good money, right? Especially girl teachers who have young kids at home, or the teachers who just want to make some extra income. They would work only as a pronunciation teacher, right? And in a developing economy like that, students were ready to pay as much as 35,000 rubles, right? Anywhere between 25 to 35,000 rubles. Now, as per that currency, like in 2017, 35,000 rubles in 2017 would become around, I can say, you know, maybe few 48,000 rupees, 45 to 48,000 Indian rupees. You can see quite a good money. Students are, willingly, coming to class, and they are ready to pay that, okay, to learn voice and accent. Now, what do is you teach them 15 sessions. One session is going to be for 3 hours with a 15-minute break in the middle. So you teach them around 45 hours, and every student is ready to pay approximately 25 to 35,000 rubles. So that's like maybe anywhere between, we can say, 35 to 45,000 rupees. Okay, so that's a scope of teaching phonology or pronunciation, voice and accent in a developing country like Russia. Now, depending on where you would go in future, some of you might want to go to China, maybe to Gulf countries, maybe to, let's say, East Asian countries, right? So depending on where you want to go, you can imagine the scope, right? Gulf countries are definitely the first world countries. China, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, all these other countries in the EU region. If you want to go to the European countries, right, there's a good scope. Plus, if you want to go to any of these Baltic countries, Baltic nations like Latvia, Lithuania, these countries, or post-Soviet Union countries. So you can imagine the scope, right? So a lot of first world countries are there where they definitely would be paying more to learn voice and accent. You can just compare that. Now that's a good thing, right? Okay. And other than that, I want to mention that some of my students are actually working as a freelance voice and accent coach. They are teaching the people in India, and they're also making very good money. Okay. So in India, you can expect for 15 sessions, your students would be ready to pay you around 10 to 15,000 rupees, right? And you can teach them for the period of 2 months. And even if you have, let's say, three or four students in your batch, and you can imagine you can make a good money, you can make a good income out of that. And the best thing is that you're not working 9 hours a day. You're working only twice a week, 3 hours each. Okay, so you can understand the scope. So also these companies are also there where they want the voice and action coaches, right? So there's a lot of good scope for this particular job in India, especially if you're going to work with international school. If you want to take a job with let's say convent high school, English medium school, any big school in big cities, you definitely need to be able to teach pronunciation. And more importantly, you as a teacher should also have neutral pronunciation. Okay? So this session and a few more sessions after this is what we are all going to study completely about the pronunciation, phonology, or voice and accent. Okay, people. So I'm now going to share my screen with you, and I'll just quickly show you what different things do we exactly teach under this topic of phonology. Okay. Now, to save the time, I have all this information, typed on a document. So I'll just copy paste it here. So I can say phonology topics, or yes, that is a better way to put it across. Teaching phonology topics. Oh, just a minute here. Okay, people. So I want to mention before we go ahead, it might seem overwhelming. It might seem to be like, oh my God, there's a lot. But don't worry about it. I will walk you through every topic very carefully and thoroughly. So, yes, people, these are the things that we need to teach or that we need to know when we are going to work as a voice and action coach, right? So the very first one is phonemes, right? Then we have syllables. Then there is something that we call as the IPA chart. Then we have word stress, main stress and secondary stress, contrastive stress, sentence stress, the sure sound, connected speech, contractions, intonations, and diagrams to teach mouth positions. Okay? So these are the things, in a nutshell, or if I have to summarize, these are the things that we teach in the phonology or in the voice and accent lessons. Okay? Now I'm going to take it to the new whiteboard, okay? And let's explore these concepts one at a time. Okay? So the very first thing that we are going to study is the phonemes. Okay, people. So phoneme, okay, is comparatively a very simple concept, but we need to jump into the details. That's why it might uh, feel a bit confusing. Okay? Uh, I mean, if it is your very first time that you are listening, or listening to this concept of phoneme, then it might be a bit confusing for you. Okay, so phonemes, you can see the definition is that it's the smallest unit of sound in a word. Need to consider only the pronunciation or sound of the word, not the spelling. Okay? So I'll just put it down over here. Okay, so phoneme, or the definition is that it's the smallest unit of sound in a word. Okay? Or we can say in a word or in a language. Okay? So phoneme is the smallest unit of sounds in a language, right? And how do you count phoneme? Need to consider only the pronunciation or sound of the word, not the spelling. Okay? So let me now explain this concept. Now, you see, people, in English, okay, uh, like English is very, we can say, phoneme sensitive language, right? So there are other languages in the world where if you modify the pronunciation, uh, for the listener, the meaning would be still clear. Some examples we can say, in India, there are people who pronounce some words differently. For example, the word design, right? Design, it is pronounced like design, right? Especially people coming from the, let's say, northern side of India, they pronounce it like design. Okay? Uh, Other words like we have school. So there are people who pronounce school as e-school whenever they are going to say the word school or any other word with that starts with the sir sound, s, sir sound. They are going to use that e sound at the initial stages. So they say e-school, istri, right, or a student, something like that. So they try to change the sound, or the original sound which is there in English is not pronounced. However, still for the listener, it is clear what the speaker is trying to say. Right? So uh, I just was making some notes, and I came to learn some different ways. Right? So some people pronounce origami as origami, right? And then one person pronounces the word remain as remain, and decipher as decipher, right? So these things, uh, when we hear it from other Indian person's mouth, for us these things are clear, or we can just accept it. Yeah, fine, it happens, right? So for the listener, it is clear what the speaker wants to say, right? And there are many other words in the regional languages as well, where the words are pronounced differently. Yeah. So you people can just think about the words in your first language that are pronounced differently. The same word, but it is pronounced differently. Okay. So you can just come up with that. But in English, if you change the pronunciation even a bit, it can change the entire meaning, right? For example, the word book versus books, right? Let me write that, book versus books. So this little s at the end is making a huge difference, right? Where the first word book, it just means one unit. The second word, books, just because of this last s at the end, it can mean two books, or it can mean 2 million books. It makes a huge difference to the language, right? Similarly, something like so versus show, right? Makes a big difference. Now, I have heard that in Chinese language, they don't have much difference between the s and sh sound. They use it interchangeably or alternatively. So the word, whatever the words are there, so if the word has that s sound, some people would pronounce it like sh, some people would pronounce it with s. However, for the listener, it is clear. I think in Hindi also we have the same thing. Some people would say इंग्लिश हमको पढ़ना नहीं आता है, इंग्लिश हमको बिल्कुल नहीं पता है, इंग्लिश and English, right? So, sir and sir. However, for the listener, the meaning would be the same, in other languages. But in English language, it can make a huge difference. So you can see so versus show. It makes a big difference, right? So this is the concept of phoneme, where even a small change in the pronunciation can make a big difference. Shock versus shock, right? So I hope you people understand. Phoneme, now this is an example of a phoneme, the highlighted area on the screen. Sir, right? So it's not only with sir, it's also with right? So phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in the word or in the language, right? So let's just try to work on this concept a bit more with some examples here. Okay. All right, so you can see these words. So we have the first word as cat. So in cat, how many phonemes, the smallest unit of sound, are there? Cat. Ka, a, t. Cat. So we have three phonemes, ka, a, and t. Cat. Right? And then we have bat. What about bat? How many phonemes? How many smallest unit of sounds are there? Three. B, a, t. Right? And similarly, the cases with mat, rat. Okay? What about this word? Ball. Ball. B, o, l. Three. Right? B, o, l. So that is something that I want to drag your attention at. So the phonemes, as you can see over here, need to consider only the pronunciation sound, okay, like not the spelling. So over here, this word ball, although we have, in spelling we have two L sound, two L letters. However, if you see, we pronounce it only once, ball. We don't say ball, ball. No, we just say ball. Right? So ba or l, ball. Right? So although in the spelling we have two letters, but we pronounce only one sound, l. So there is only one l sound over here. So the number of phonemes is three, ba or la, right? Now, similarly, if we take some other cases over here, now let's try to focus on a bit long word. Okay, you can see this word communication. Okay? So if you look at the spelling, and if you want to break down the spelling, so you would break it something like that. Ka, mu, ni, ke, sha, na, right? That's how the spelling would be broken down. Ka, mu, ni, ke, sha, na, right? But look at the rule again, our definition or the rule. Need to consider only the pronunciation, not the spelling. So although in spelling, you can see we have two m, two m's, and then over here we have IO, but you do not need to consider that. Over here we have CO. Okay? You do not need to consider that. What you need to consider is just the sound. So close your eyes and just try to, say this word. Communication. Right? So the first part of the word ka, it's not ko, it's not o, it's just ka. So this letter is silent. So we have one phoneme, ka, right? After that, the next one is mu, mu, right? So over here, you need to see if you can break it down any further. Mu. Can you break it down? Can you break down the sound mu? So we can say ma plus u, mu, right? So that's what you see over here. Ma and u. That makes mu, right? And then after that we have ni. So can we break down ni? Yes. So we have na and e, ni, right? And then k. So over here you can see k, ka and e, k. And then we have this, that is sh, sh, and n. Okay? So overall, if you try to count the number of phonemes, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay? So you do not need to look at the spelling. You need to focus on the pronunciation. Okay? So another way to look at it is to break down the pronunciation in its smallest part. Okay? So for example, this simple word, pen. So we say pa, e, na, right? Pen, pe, na, pe, na, right? Two parts in this word, pe, na. However, if you see this part of the word, the first part, pe, can you break it down? Pa and e makes it pe, pe, na. Now, can you break down na? Try it. Is it possible? No. So na, it is already at its base sound, the very, very basic sound. It cannot be broken down further. Okay? But this pe, pe, can it be broken down? Pe, pa plus e, pe. Yes, it can be broken down. So pa, e, na. Right? Similarly, the other word that we have here, pencil. Can we break it down? Pencil. So first of all, the way we say it, we don't say pencil. Right? We don't say pencil. We say pencil, pencil, pencil. Right? So that is how you break down the word pencil. Okay? Now over here, in the first part of the word, we have pen, right? So pe, can we break it down? Yes. Pa, e, and na, right? Pa, e, na, and then we have the next part of the word, sil, sa, I, la, right? Sil, sa, I, la, right? Pencil. So that's how you count phonemes. Okay? So in the other word that we are going to see over here, Sam. Yes, people. How many phonemes over here? Three, right? Sa, a, ma, right? Because this sa, you can break it down. Sa, a, ma. But can you break this down? Sa, can you make it even smaller? Is there anything that you can separate from this sound? Sa, no. It is already the base sound. Similarly, we have the a sound. Can you separate any other sound from this? A? No, it is the base sound already. And ma cannot be separated. It is also the base sound. So with the first part, sa, sa, can we separate any sounds? Yes, sa and a. We can separate that. Sa and a. So sa, a, ma, three phonemes. Okay? So phonemes, again, you can see it is the smallest unit of the sound in the language. Okay? So yes, people, I hope this concept of phonemes is clear to you. Now, I will tell you why are we learning these things. Okay? Because there's a very important concept that we are going to study with the help of these phonemes. Okay? And your students, wherever you will be working in future, in India or around the world, they might not be able to produce these sounds. They don't know how to produce the m sound. Ma. You see how my lips, teeth, my lower jaw, the position changes? Ma, ma, na, na, ta, pa, ba, ra. Right? So for different sounds, for different phonemes, we need a different position of the mouth. Right? So for a lot of foreign students, they just don't know how to produce these phonemes. So it is first important that we know this concept of phoneme, okay? And then I will take you to the next concept now. Eventually, after some time, you will be able to understand why are we studying these concepts. Okay? So the next concept that we are going to study is also very important. So the next concept that we have is syllable. Okay. So syllable, what we can say is that syllable is the okay, people just a minute. All right. So I'm just going to paste down the some information over here, and then we will discuss over it. Okay? So we can see in syllable what is a syllable. Okay? So these are the possible definitions of this syllable. Right, just give me a minute here. Okay, so you can see these are the possible definitions of syllable. Right? So syllable, in very simple words, I can say syllable. It's the combination of sounds. Right? So you can see our first definition. This concept is comparatively bit more difficult. So syllable, it's a combination of a consonant sound plus a vowel sound. Okay? A vowel sound must be influenced, must influence the pronunciation. Whatever vowel sound you have, it should influence the pronunciation, right? For example, in this word, you see this letter, although O is a vowel letter, it is not influencing the pronunciation. We do not say phoenix, we say phoenix, right? So O is not influencing the pronunciation, right? So that is our second concept. Vowel sound must influence the pronunciation. Phoenix, right? Need to consider the spelling and pronunciation both, right? Now, if you recall what we studied earlier over here on our previous slide, in phonemes, we considered only the pronunciation, right? But over here in syllable, you need to consider the spelling and pronunciation both. Okay? Now the other one is that words ending with LE, if they have a consonant letter before the I sound, okay, then we call it as the syllable. Okay, I think this has come by mistake before the L sound. Okay? Before the L sound, then we call that as a syllable. And if the letter Y, if it is giving any vowel sound like A, E, I, O, U, then we call that as a syllable. Okay? So let me just explain it to you. And the last rule that we have, how to find syllables, look at the spelling, count the vowel letters and the vowel letters that are pronounced, count them as a syllable. Okay? So if I just walk you through a little exercise over here, okay, people. So that is our first word, laptop. Simple. We all know this word, very extremely frequently used word, laptop. Now you need to see how many vowel letters are there. So we have one vowel letter over here, la, and then two, right? So two vowel letters, and are they both pronounced? Is any letter silent? No, both vowel letters are pronounced. La, t, ta, p. Laptop. No? So how many syllables over here? Two. La, p, ta, p. Laptop. So two syllables over here. The next word, pencil. What do you think of this? Pencil. Okay. So how many vowel letters? One and two. Do we have any silent letter over here? No. Right? So pe, no, si, la. Pencil. Right? So you can see that is our syllable one, pe, and that is our syllable two, si. Right? Pe, si. Pencil. Right? Now the next one. over here. Eraser, eraser. So you need to see how many vowel letters are there. So first is E, then A, and E again. Now, do we have any silent vowel letters like Phoenix? No. Right? All the vowel letters in this word is all, they are all pronounced. So we have E, Ray, Z, right? So that is our rule number 2. If you look at that, I'm just going to highlight it. The vowel sound must influence the pronunciation, right? So over here, you see the very first letter E, although it is just alone, see, it is alone, but it is influencing the pronunciation. We have to pronounce that sound: E, ray, zer, eraser. See? So how many syllables over here? 3. Right? In this word, how many syllables? 2. Right? Now let's go ahead and study the other words. Horse. What do you think about this, people? Horse. So let's count the vowel letters. So we have O or O sound, or O letter, and then we have E letter. So we have 2 vowel letters. And how many vowel sounds do you hear? How do we pronounce this word? Do we pronounce it like horse? Do we pronounce it like horsey? No, we pronounce it like horse, horse, right? So how many vowel sounds are pronounced? 1, ho. This o sound is pronounced. What about this? S, s. E, this letter is not pronounced, right? So E letter is silent. Therefore, we will not count this as a syllable. Okay? So over here, we have 1 syllable. That is this, haw, haw. And then we just say sir. If the pronunciation would have been horsey or horse, then we would say, oh yes, this is horse. Then we would have counted that as a syllable. Let's compare horse with another word with the same letters and same spelling structure. Forte. Yes, people. What do you think about this? Forte. Now let's count the vowel letters. We have vowel letter 1 and 2, right? 2 vowel letters. What about the pronunciation? Do we have any silent vowel letter? Think of it. For te. So our first vowel letter O is pronounced for, and then our second vowel letter E is also pronounced, right? Te. So in this word, we have for, te, forte, forte. So we have 2 syllables, right? So you need to check the spelling, and also you need to check the pronunciation to count the syllables. Forte. Name. So I hope that concept is clear now. Now the next word that we have over here is table. Okay? Table. So how many letters, how many vowel letters do you see? 1 and 2, right? 2 vowel letters. But are they both pronounced? Table, table. So you see, this is giving me the sound of te, and then bul, right? E over here is silent, right? E is silent. However, now I want to request you to look at our rule number 4. So that is another rule. Words ending, all the words ending with LE, if have a consonant letter before L, then we count that as a syllable. So do we have this letter that is ending with LE? Yes, this word is ending with LE. And before L, before this sound, what letter do we have? We have letter B. So is B a consonant letter? Yes, it is a consonant letter. So we have to call that a syllable, or we have to count it as a syllable. So you can see again, words ending with LE, if they have a consonant letter before L, then count that as a syllable. Okay? So that is a rule. Now you cannot argue the rule. Okay? And in English, you people can quite easily understand we have many words that end with LE sound, L sound. We have many words in English, right? So that is why this rule has to be mentioned specifically. So words that end with LE, if they have a consonant letter before L, right? So the highlighted part you can see on the screen, that is L, and that is the consonant letter before that. So as a rule, we count that as a syllable. Right? So two syllables. Table, table. Right? Now another example of this is the word syllable itself. So syllable, right? So again, this word is ending with le, correct? And does it have a consonant letter before L sound? Yes, there is B. So this word, now if we count how many syllables are there, so C, now you can see this is an example where letter Y is giving you a E sound, syllable, 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 right? So you can see our rule number 4. If Y gives a vowel sound, A, E, I, O, U, any of these sounds, then we count that as a syllable. Right? So that is the reason. Although now our rule is that we should check the spelling and the pronunciation both, right? So as per the spelling, how many vowel letters do we have? One and two, only two. But we have Y, and Y is giving me the E sound, syllable, right? E sound, syllable. So I count this as a syllable. Okay. Again, our rule, if Y gives the vowel sound, then count that as a syllable, right? So this is our syllable 1. What about this? La, sila, sila. Do you think this is an example of a syllable? La, la. No, right? Because although the letter A is there, but it is silent. It is not pronounced. If you pronounce it like syllable, syllable, then maybe we count that as a syllable, okay? But the pronunciation is syllable, right? So we do not count this highlighted area as a syllable, okay? Now the last one. So this is ending with LE and it has a consonant letter before that. So we count this as a syllable, right? So how many syllables over here? One, C. Now we are not going to count this highlighted area L, no. And then last one. Okay? So if we break this word down, syllable, and it has two syllables. Okay, people? I hope that this concept is clear. What about this? Mobile. Mobile. Okay, so that's how we pronounce it, right? Mobile, correct? So we first pronounce mo and then we pronounce bile. Okay? We do not pronounce mobile. We do not pronounce mobile, right? We also do not pronounce it like mobile, right? We pronounce it like mobile. Okay? So that's how you just need to understand the pronunciation breakdown. And if you try to count over here in this word, how many vowel letters are there? So we have mo, o, and then we have I, and then we have E. Okay? Now, do all these letters, are all of them pronounced? Mo. O is pronounced, and by. So we know the letter I, it gives us the E sound, and it also gives us the I sound. Okay? So by. So we know that letter I is pronounced, but what about this? L at the end. Do we pronounce it like mobile, mobile? No, we say mobile, right? So therefore, E is not pronounced. E is a silent letter. So how many syllables over here? Two, right? Now our next word, interrupt. So let's quickly count the vowel letters. One, two, three, right? We have three vowel letters. Now, how many of them are actually pronounced? E, E, and then we pronounce this sound over here? E, do we pronounce this? Inter, inter, right? So this is the sound, and then we have this U letter. Do we pronounce it? Do we pronounce like interrupt? Okay, people, just give me a minute here. Okay, people. Right, now this word interrupt, you can see over here, interrupter, right? So do we pronounce this ter? We do. Ter, and ra. Okay, the sound is pronounced specifically. So over here, we have three syllables. Okay? So that's another way to count the syllables. So interrupter. Okay? What about this word? Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay? So this is the. Okay? So over here, so how many syllables can we count? You can see we have 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then 5. So just because we have 5 vowel letters, can we count them as 5 syllables? No. You just need to see how many sounds are you getting. Bu, oo sound is there, and then we have t, and then we have foo. Okay? So how many syllables here? 3. Okay? Now the next one, university. Okay? So the first one that we have is you, ni, were, si, and t. So over here, you can see we are getting that E sound with the letter Y. Okay? And then with this word conjunction, conjunction. So if you count, we have one vowel, two, three, and four. So although we have four vowel sounds, if we try to count the syllables, so we say kan. So is it pronounced chung and shan? Right? So over here, you can see our rule how to find syllables. Look at the spelling, count the vowel letters. The vowel letters that are pronounced, count them as a syllable. Right? But in these cases, university and conjunction, you can see it is quite difficult to understand if the vowel letter is pronounced or not. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little trick over here. Okay? So the trick is very simple. You just need to place your hand below your chin here, okay, and pronounce the word and see how many times your chin touches your hand. Okay? So for this word, let's try to work with this. Okay? Now look at my lower chin over here. Interrupt, 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 right? Interrupt, interrupt. So the more, the number of times your lower jaw or your chin goes down. See? That is how we count the syllables. So over here, in this word interrupt, so it touches three times. So we count that as three syllables. Then we have beautiful. Let's check with that. See, beautiful, 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 beautiful. Right? So I'm exaggerating it. I'm trying to say it louder, or I'm stretching it more just to explain it. So over here we have three syllables. What about this word now? Okay. You, ni, were, si, ti. You, ni, were, si, ti. Right? Try to do it with me. You, ni, were, si, ti. How many? You, ni, were, si, ti. Right? So we have five syllables over here. And then the last one, conjunction. Let's try to do it this. Conjunction. Conjunction. Right? So over here we have three syllables. So that is another way to count the syllables. Okay? So the easiest way to count syllables is just to place your hand below your jaw, okay, and try to see how many times your chin touches your hand. That is the easiest way. However, I just wanted to walk you through all these rules. Okay? Now you understand syllables is comparatively quite a difficult area to understand. Yeah, but with practice, you will understand it. Okay? So our first concept was phonemes. Phonemes is the smallest unit of sound. When we try to count phonemes, we do not look at the spelling. We just focus on the sound. Okay? However, when we try to count the syllables, we will have to look at the spelling and sound both, right? So let's now try to see if our hand placing, if this trick can help us to count all the phonemes as per the numbers that we have written. Okay, so laptop, our first word, laptop, right? Two. Next word, pencil, pencil. Two. Eraser, eraser, right? Eraser, eraser. Three. Horse, horse. One. Next one. Forte, forte. right? Four, tay, two. Next one, tay, bal, tay, bal, right? Tay, bal, right? Two, tay, bal. And then we have si, la, bal, si, la, bal. Okay, so I think with syllable, we have three. Okay? If you try to count it, si, la, bal, si, la, bal. Okay? Syllable, we have three over here. And then with mo, bile, mo, bile, mo, bile, two. Interrupt. No, we discussed these below, right? So that's the syllable. And it is important that as an English language teacher, we understand the syllables or how to count them. Right. So easiest trick is to just memorize this technique. Place your hand below your lower jaw and count them. Okay? Now let me take you through something else. Okay. And then this concept would be clearer. Why are we studying this phonemes and the syllables? So just give me a minute here. Okay, people. So you can see this word on your screen. Okay? So that is the word that I have, and I am not sure how am I supposed to pronounce this word, right? Is it regurgitate? Is it regurgitate? Or is it regurgitate? Or is it regurgitate? Or is it regurgitate? So quite confusing, right? So we are just going to study these things, how to understand the pronunciation of these things. Okay? Just give me a minute here. I need to share my screen again. All right. Now, in order to understand what are the exact pronunciations of the words, we have to look into this chart. Okay? So please do not be scared looking at this chart. Comparatively, it is quite simple. So this is called as the IPA chart. So IPA, you can see over here, phonemic chart. So it is International Phonemic Chart. So phonemes is what this area is going to discuss. Okay? So I will quickly walk you through this chart. But over here at the lower bottom, you can read the 44 phonemes of standard British English with the examples. Okay? So we are looking at the British English. This has been adopted from this albaenglish.co.uk. So this is a phonemic chart. Now you remember phoneme, as we discussed, is the smallest unit of sound in English, and phonemic chart, it just is going to tell you what different symbols are there for different sounds of English words. Okay? You can see 44 sounds, 44 phonemes. As we discussed earlier at the start of this session, in English we have only 26 letters, but we have 44 phonemes, right? Big injustice, right? So with this phonemic chart, you can see there is a letter or a sign given to every sound in English language. I will quickly walk you through this chart. Okay? So the first one is M. M sound, that is represented by this M letter. Then we have N sound, represented by N letter. Then we have ng sound, represented by this letter. Okay? You can see this looks like kind of an elephant's head. Okay? Ng, right? So that ng sound, that's kind of a nasal sound, nga, is shown by this symbol. And then we have the J letter. So it represents the ear sound, like yes, onion, view, ear sound, represented by this symbol, the lower J. Then we have L sound, light, smelly, feel, L sound, represented by small l. Then we have the R sound, right, berry, wrong, R sound, represented by R. Then we have V sound, win, where, one, V sound, represented by W. Then we have H sound, house, hungry, who, her sound, represented by small h. Okay. So how many new signs over here? In this row, we have one and two new symbols to remember. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. So we have the f sound, fire, laugh, phone, f sound represented by small f. Then we have the v sound, video, move, of, right? So represented by v. And then we have th, th sound, thick, healthy, teeth, th sound is represented by this zero with a line in the middle. Okay? So whenever you see this symbol, you need to understand this is the th sound. And then we have the sound, mother, this, with, the sound represented by this symbol. So this looks like kind of a D, small d, with its this line, okay, kind of curved over here, and this little line crossing it diagonally, right? So whenever you see this symbol, you need to understand it is representing the sound. Okay, so th and the. Okay? So in English, we see we have th and th for both. So for foreign students or for even for the Indian students, a lot of students are there. For them, it is not clear when is it here, when it is there. But now with the help of this script, you would be able to understand when it is pronounced like the, when it is pronounced like the versus the. And then we have the s sound represented by small s. Then we have the z sound represented by the z sign. So z for like zebra, ko z, has z represented by z. Then we have the sh sound represented by this symbol. So you can see this is kind of an S sign, but it is stretched vertically, right? So sh. And then we have j, television, visual, leisure. Now the j sound is shown by this kind of a numeric 3 sign, right? So that is the j sound. And then we have the p sound, pen, hopping, jump, p sound represented by small p. Then we have the b sound, ball, hobby, herb, b sound represented by small b. Then we have the t sound, table, little, watched, t sound represented by small t. We have d sound, dog, added, played, d sound represented by small d. And this one is new. So this is the ch sound, chips, itch, picture, ch sound. Okay? Ch sound represented by this symbol. So you can see this is kind of the T from here, right? T and sh from here. Okay. So when written together like this symbol represents the ch sound. Okay. Then we have the j sound. Okay. So j for jam, danger, fudge, j sound. So this is, we can see D with numeric 3. D with numeric 3. It represents the j sound. Jam, danger, j. Okay? And then we have the k sound represented by small k, tea, car, luck. And then we have g sound, green, hug, league. G sound represented by small g. Okay. So in total, if we count, so in this row we have unga and ya, two sounds. Over here we have one, two, three, and four new symbols. And then on top over here we have two new symbols. So together eight symbols, eight new symbols to remember in consonants. Okay. So you can see the blue area is consonants. Okay. All the consonants, they are here. Okay. Now I want to pull your attention to this particular thing. This is the sound, zebra. So Z has the, this is very blur. We can say 100% blur. Z. Versus this is J, television, visual, J, Z, J. So we can say this is 50% blur, visual. And then we have jam, J, very sharp, no blur at all. J, danger. Okay. So now focus on this. The, J, and J. Zebra, visual, jam. The, J, and J. Okay. So zebra, Z is 100% blur. Visual, J, 50% blur. And then jam, J, no blur at all. Okay. So you need to remember we have three versions of the Z sound in English. And then we have S versus sh, S versus sh, th versus the. Okay. So you should just know these things. Now, I know you people might be wondering why on this earth we are learning these things. Don't worry, bear with me and I will explain it to you in a while. Okay? Now, the little concept that we have over here, you can see voiced and unvoiced, and you can see these consonants. Some of them are in green and the others are in blue. Okay, so that is voiced and unvoiced, right? So to understand this concept, I want to request you people to take your two fingers, okay? Take the first two fingers of your hand and place them over here on your throat bone, okay? Place them here on your throat bone, right? Now try to say these sounds with me, but you need to bring all your attention at the tip of your fingers, okay? Bring all your attention at the tip of your fingers and try to see what do you experience over here in your throat bones. Now you can see it. Pa, pa, ta, ta, cha, sa, ka, sha, ha. Versus now try to say ba, va, da, da, ja, za, ga, za, ma, na, nga, ya, la, ra, wa. Do you feel any difference? The letters in green, they are unvoiced. That means when you pronounce these words or these sounds, these letters, there is no vibration happening in your throat. So try to compare that pa, pa with ma, pa, ma, na, tha, ta, nga, ya, cha, sa. Okay? So the green ones, the letters that you see in the green boxes, they are unvoiced. That means when you produce these sounds, you do not need to use your vocal cords. You do not need to use your throat organs to produce these sounds. These sounds, they come directly. Pa, pa, ta, cha, sa, ka. sh, her. Versus the voice sounds. To produce these voice sounds, you need to use your vocal cords. Ba, wa, ma, na. So there's some vibration happening over here, and then these sounds are produced. Okay? So for foreign students, they might not be able to understand, or they might not be able to produce a particular sound. But when you tell them, when you compare the two sounds of their language, maybe there is a voice sound and unvoiced sound, and you tell them this is voiced and unvoiced, and try to produce the sound in English. So they know that, oh, now I need to use my vocal cords, or now I need to use some vibration over here in my throat to produce these sounds. Okay? So that is the difference between voiced and unvoiced sounds, or the consonants. Now let me take you to the vowels. Okay? So vowels, you can see the first one over here. We are going to study these initially. Okay? And then this area we will come back after some time. So you can see the first one is a, like apple, mat, cat, a. So a sound is represented by this symbol. So this looks like kind of the A sign with E sign. So together this sign, it represents the A sound. Then we have the up, money, cut, short sound represented by this vertical V, or we can say this inverted V. Okay? And then we have the sound, car, park, safari, sound. Sound represented by this, kind of A letter with a colon sign. So this represents the sound. And then we have the sound. So it's kind of the mirror reflection of this, written like this, or this symbol, just this without a colon. This represents the sound. What? Because, not, or. And then we have bed, dead, said, sound represented by E. And then we have sound, police, about, the, sound represented by this A letter, or this letter, this symbol. It represents the long sound. So this is the short sound. This is the long sound, like up and the uh. Okay. Then the next one is r. So you see this symbol, it looks like 3 with a colon sign. So this represents the r sound. Bird, no? Bird, hurt, work, r. So when I'm pronouncing it for you, I'm making it very significant. R, bird, hurt. However, the r sound is very subtle. R, r. Bird, hurt, work, r. Right? So this symbol, numeric 3 with a colon sign, it represents the r sound. And then we have the aw sound, like door, walk, saw, no, that aw sound. Aw, kind of long aw sound. So this is represented by this. It's kind of an inverted C, or a mirror reflection of C with a colon sign. That represents the aw sound, like walk, saw, right? And then we have the long E sound, sheep, right? So long E sound, eagle, field. And then the next one that we have is the short E sound, chip, busy, started. And then we have, this symbol. So this looks like kind of a matka, right? The clay pot, right? So this is the short oo sound. Okay? So good, put, should, oo, short oo sound. They represented by this symbol. And then we have the long oo sound represented by this U with a colon sign. Oo, moon, grew, who, long oo sound. Name. So these are the vowel sounds. So now you might be able to understand it better why we have these phonemic chart or these phonemic symbols. So as discussed earlier, in English, like we have letter A, which represents four, or maybe we can say five sounds. So over here, you can see the first one is A, and then we have up, car, not, or ball, right? And then about, right? So this is the reason why these symbols are mentioned, so that when you would be able to, when you have to read it, you should be able to read it more effectively or easily. Right? Oops. Okay. Now coming to the diphthong over here, we have these sounds. So diphthong is a combination of two vowel sounds or one vowel and one consonant sound. Okay. So you see the first one is ow, ow, and u, ow. No? A, u, a, u, ow, ow, now, hour, house, ow. Okay. Then the next one is I, and year, 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 high, fine, by, I. Right? Then the next one is ear, like hair, no? A and a and a, air, air, hair, careful, there, air. Okay? And then we have or, o, a, o, or, or, coat, low, note, or, right? Then we have oi, or, yeah, or, yeah, or, yeah, oi, oi, boy, point, oil, oi, right? Then the next one is oo, uh, oo, oor, oor, your, sure, tourist, oor, okay? And then we have air, a and air, 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 train, say, plane, air, a and air. Okay? And then we have ear, e, a, e, a, e, a, ear, ear, here, career, ear. All right, people? So these are diphthongs. So diphthongs, again, these are the combination of two vowel sounds or one vowel and one consonant. So over here, you can see I and oi. So this is a and ya. So ya is a consonant sound, right? So combination of one vowel and one consonant sound, I and oi, or and ya, the combination of a vowel and a consonant sound, oi. So this is the phonemic chart, people. Okay. Now let me tell you why do we need this. Okay, we studied the phonemes, we studied the syllables. Now we studied the IPA chart. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Just allow me a minute. I'm going to explain to you why do we need this at all. Okay. All right, people. So I have opened a website over here. All right. So you can see we are on the Cambridge Dictionary website. Okay, we are on the Cambridge Dictionary page. And now I have that word over here, which I showed you earlier, right? So this was the word that I showed you earlier. And we were not able to understand how exactly am I supposed to read this word, right? Is it re gurgitate, or is it re gurgitate, or is it re jurgitate, or is it re jurgitate? What is it? Very, very confusing, right? But you can read this IPA script. Okay? So over here, you can see R plus the short E sound, re, and then we have G and that R sound, G, and you can see this R sound. So I know this is Gr, and then J, and short E, G. Mhm. And then we have Te, right? So T, and this A we just studied, and then T, right? So I know this is not tate, this is tate. Now I know this is not re, this is re. And this sound, okay, this is, I was confused initially, right? Is it regurgitate, regurgitate? Is it g or j? Now I can be sure this is g sound, right? And then g with the sound. Now I know this is regur, regur, and then this is g. This now you can see this is the j sound. This is the g sound, and this is the j sound. So same word, same letters representing two different sounds, right? So now with the help of the phonemic script, I know this is the G sound, not G. This is G, and then this is tate. See? Regurgitate, right? Regurgitate. Now, if we try to listen to the sounds, let's try to listen.
Regurgitate. Regurgitate. Regurgitate.
Right? So it is regurgitate. But I was able to read this pronunciation without having to play the sound, right? That's the beauty of it, isn't it? Now there is another word. Hey, people, so you can see this word. Again, quite an uncommon word in English, right? And you can see even finding the pronunciation of this word is going to be difficult. Okay? So I might, if I just come across this word in a reading passage and I'm just reading this, how am I exactly supposed to pronounce this word? Is it rendezvous? Yeah, rendezvous. Maybe maybe Z sign is silent. Maybe it's rendezvous or rendezvous. What is it, right? Or is it re? Is it rendezvous? Rendezvous, possible, right? Or maybe it is rendezvous. That is also possible, right? So how? I can either play the sound, but now I know a better technique. I can read the pronunciation. Okay? So now I know this is Ron. Okay? So this is the O sound we studied and the N sound. So this is Ron, and then you can see D, and then this is A. We studied this diphthong. So rende, and then I have w, and I have the long oo sound. You see, this is the long oo sound. So the pronunciation of this is rendezvous. Okay? Rendezvous. So let's listen to this.
Rendezvous. 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 Rendezvous.
Rendezvous. And the US pronunciation is, you can see over here, this is the R sound, right?
Rendezvous.
Rendezvous,
Rendezvous.
right? So that's how we understand the thing. Now you might be wondering, why do we need to read this when we can just listen to the sound?
Rendezvous.
Logical question. Right? You need to listen to, you should be able to read this, because listening to the sound would not give you the correct understanding of the pronunciation, right? Or the pronunciation breakdown, or the stress, right? The stress where, like we know in every English word, there is one particular area where there is more stress. For example, the word important, important, right? If you pronounce this word like important, important, you're gone. Okay. I mean, your students would just run away from you, right? You need to know where the stress is. Important, important, not important, right? Similarly, over here, this is not regurgitate. This is regurgitate, regurgitate. You know? But listening to the pronunciation,
Regurgitate.
right?
Regurgitate.
Regurgitate, listening to the pronunciation, it is difficult to understand where exactly the stress is. Listen to it again.
Regurgitate.
Where do you think is the stress? Is it on the re?
Regurgitate.
Is it on G?
Regurgitate.
Regurgitate. Or is it on over here, tate?
Regurgitate. Regurgitate.
Confusing, right? And how do you think you should break down this word? The pronunciation breakdown, right? For example, the word important, no? Important. We break it down like that. Important. If you pronounce it something like important, students, you need to study this because this is very important. Do you think you will make a good impression on your students? No. That's one example for you to understand. But when you're teaching this kind of vocabulary, if you are not able to understand the pronunciation breakdown at the correct places, your credibility is at stake. Your students would not appreciate that, especially when you will be working with foreign students. Okay? So you also need to know how the word is breaking down in its pronunciation. Now over here, is this regurgitate? Is it regurgitate, regurgitate, or is it regurgitate, regurgitate, or is it regurgitate, regurgitate? How is it exactly broken down? No. Similarly, like, is it important, important, or is it important? So that is where this script is going to help you. Okay? So first of all, to understand where the stress is in this word, you need to look at this apostrophe. Okay? So the syllable, now we studied what is a syllable. This is a syllable. This is a syllable. Okay? If we try to count the number of syllables in this word, regurgitate, regurgitate, 4 syllables, right? Regurgitate, 4 syllables. So over here, that is my second syllable. So the apostrophe is there. Now the syllable exactly after this apostrophe takes the main stress. Again, the syllable exactly after, right after this apostrophe takes the main stress in the word. So now I know the stress is over here. Rigor, rigor, right? Regurgitate, which was initially impossible for me to understand listening to the pronunciation.
regurgitate,
Okay? So when I asked you, is the stress on re, and I played the sound, you felt like, oh yeah, the stress is on re. But then I said, is it on G? Listen to it again. And I played, and you must have felt, oh yeah, the stress is on G. Or maybe some of you would have felt, no, the stress is on te, right? But now you know, with the help of this sign, you know where the stress is. Again, the syllable exactly after or right after this apostrophe takes the main stress, regurgitate. And over here, you can see these period signs, the full stop or the period signs. This tells you the pronunciation breakdown. Right? So over here, our first pronunciation breakdown is there, and the next pronunciation breakdown is here. Okay? So this part is one, and then this is the second part of the word, and this is the third part of the word. So if I have to read it now, I'm going to read it like rigor, and then G is separate, and then tate. So how am I going to read it? Regurgitate, 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 right? So this period sign helped me to understand where the pronunciation is breaking down. Similarly, with our other word, rendezvous, you can see the apostrophe, right? And how many syllables are there in this word? Let's count that. Run, they, woo. Run, they, woo. Run, they, woo. Right? Three. Run, they, woo. Rendezvous. So three syllables. So which syllable takes the mean stress? Is it rendezvous? Is it rendezvous? Or is it rendezvous? Rendezvous? Or is it rendezvous? Rendezvous. So now we can understand with the help of this IPS script. Look at the apostrophe. Apostrophe is here, and the syllable exactly after or right after this apostrophe takes the main stress. So that is my main stress. Ron. In the British pronunciation, it is rendezvous. In American pronunciation, it is rendezvous. But in both cases, you can see the stress is exactly after this apostrophe. Okay? The first syllable is where the stress is. Run. Okay? And the pronunciation breakdown, that is the period sign. That is the period sign. So it is breaking down at two places, right? So we have run, day, view. So this pronunciation of this word is breaking down in three parts. Rendezvous, 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 right? Let's study another example. So this is going to be the word that you know very well. Okay. So look at that now. Okay. Important, right? So try to read the IPS script. We have the short E and M, im, and then we have the per sign, and then we have the or sign, right? So you can see that is impor, and then we have ter, important. So how many, where does the way this word breaks? It breaks only at this place, only one breakdown. So important, right? Important. And where is the stress? So let's first count how many syllables are there. Im, important, important, important. How many? Three, right? So where is the stress? Is it on first? No, it's on the second syllable. How do we know that? Look at the apostrophe. So the syllable exactly after the apostrophe takes the main stress. And with the help of this period sign, I can understand where my word is breaking down. So it's important, important. Okay? So that's quite common, right? Maybe we should just study one last word here. Again, this is going to be a word that you people know very well. Okay. Oops, yes, all right. So you can see this word. So we counted the syllables. Maybe we should do it again. See? Beautiful. 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 How many? Three syllables, right? Now over here, I can see it is ba, and then you see that J symbol that represents the year sound. So I know this is year, and the long oo sound. I know this is bu, right? Then there is a period sign, and then I have ch and short e t, and then fa al. Beautiful, right? So over here, by looking at this apostrophe, I can understand the stress is over here on the first syllable. So this is the area where the stress is, and look at that period sign. So we have bu, okay? That is our first part, and then we have t and fal, okay? Beautiful, right? So that is how this word is broken down, and that is how you can read it. Okay? Now, another word that I just want to show you quickly. I was actually in a situation where I personally was not able to understand the pronunciation of this particular word. Okay? You can see this word. So now reading the IPS script, I know this is few, for you, per year, and ooh, few, right? And the apostrophe tells me this is where the stress is, and t, and I, and l. So it is futile, futile, right? Futile, right? So if you just listen to it,
Futile. Futile.
futile,
Futile.
futile, okay? And it is breaking down in only one part. So there are only two parts in this pronunciation. Futile, okay, people? So I was in a situation where I pronounced this word as fertile, okay? And I was working with this business English student group, and they have this word in their book. I had the book open on my laptop, and I read this word as fertile. And my students, they immediately raised their eyebrows, and they're like, our teacher said, because they had their original teacher who was teaching them, and I used to go to help them practice what they have learned throughout the week. So I would go to this company and practice people speaking English with them and help them to practice whatever they have learned. So while reading or pronouncing this word, I pronounced it like fertile. And my students, they said, our teacher said it's futile, and you say fertile. Which one is correct? And I said, yeah, fertile, futile, right. And then I continued my speech. I explained them something, some concept for approximately 2 minutes after that. And after my explanation, I asked them, do you understand? And this was a group of, I think, 8 or 9 people. They looked at each other and they looked at me, And they said, but our teacher said it's futile. Now you're saying fertile. Which one is correct? Okay. So they were still stuck at that point. I explained them for 2 minutes after that, but they were not listening. Silently in their mind, they were just wondering. Our teacher said fertile. We are saying futile. Which is the correct pronunciation of this word? Okay? Because they don't want to learn incorrect pronunciation and later on face an embarrassing situation in their life when they will be in their professional life, when they might be doing some presentation in their job or whatever. They don't want anyone to come up to them and say, what did you say that? I was not able to understand. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? They don't want to experience any kind of embarrassment. Okay? And they're paying money, right? They're paying good money, like 35 to 50,000, etc. But they also expect the great level of experience. You cannot just make your way out of the situation saying, yeah, futile, yeah. And then I'm explaining you for 2 minutes, listen to this explanation. Do you understand? And then like, our teacher said, futile, you're saying fertile. What is it? Okay? A lot of words in English are like that. Elite versus elite. Is it elite? Is it elite? So one of the class where I said it is elite, and then my students were just, they just hopped on me. They were not letting it go. Is it elite or elite? Just tell us. Okay? So that time I was able to read this IPA script. Okay, this is when I worked in Russia. So I was able to read the script and I had the book, the PDF version of that book open on my laptop. So I quickly, I pretended I'm just behind my laptop and I'm reading the PDF version of the book. And, I just quickly opened this very, this very page, the Cambridge Dictionary page. I quickly searched this word and you can see I was able to read it. And I said, oh yeah, it's futile. Yeah, a slip of tongue. It's futile. It's futile. Yeah, slip of tongue. Right. And they were able to let it go and they allowed me to continue the class. Imagine if I was not sure at that moment if it is futile or fertile, and if I had no resource, like no idea to read this pronunciation, okay? And if I had played the sound, you see, it makes tremendously negative impression on your students. If you're playing the sound to check the correct pronunciation, they would say, we can do the same. I know what website is there. I can also play the sound and listen to it myself. I can also learn pronunciation on my own, just like you're doing. I'm coming to you because I think you are an expert. But if you depend on the websites and the pronunciation, the recordings, what's like you are not a good teacher. Oh, because I can also do the same thing on my own in my home. I'm coming to you to your class and you are playing the sound to check what because you're not sure. You see, it just kills all your impression. So yes, you can listen to the sound. That's a good option to check the pronunciation, but it's not the option that will be available for you all the time. Okay? Even if you're, let's say, preparing for your class in the staff room, there are going to be other teachers around. Do you think you can play the sound to check what is the pronunciation? No, it's going to send a bad message to other teachers. They're going to gossip about you, back talk, maybe politics. They can say this teacher is not even able to understand that sound. She has to depend on the audio sounds, the recordings to check the sound. What good teacher is she? So maybe I know another teacher. She is my best friend, and she studied with me in school. I can bring her. You kick this teacher out. I will bring my friend here. They can go and speak with the management. This happens. No, this has happened with me. It's a very common situation. Bureaucracy, politics is everywhere. Okay? So you don't want to show your weakness, your weak side. And the weakness for us Indian people is that pronunciation. We know vocabulary up to, let's say, intermediate level, but we don't know the upper intermediate level vocabulary, advanced level vocabulary, proficiency level vocabulary? We don't know that, right? So should you wait until you learn all the words with the correct pronunciation and then get into teaching? Well, maybe you would be able to do that in your next life, okay? Because learning all the words, all the correct pronunciation, and then thinking about teaching it, it will take all your life. See? So this is the trick. Being able to read the IPA script would save you. It has saved me a lot of times. I think this is a very important tool that you should know. So that's how, it tells you where the stress is, where the breakdown is, and what is the correct pronunciation. So for this word, it's very easy to get confused. Instead of saying futile, you say fertile. It's quite easy because we say fur, furnish, furniture, fu, fur sound. It's easy. You might read it like fertile. Why don't you say furniture? Why don't you say fur? You say fur, furniture, then why the hell it is futile here? No one can explain that. It is just it is, right? So whenever I teach my students, I always keep this Cambridge Dictionary page open, and I'm just ready to search the word. So students might just ask you any questions. What is this word, or teacher that word? They might write some word on paper and they show you. Tell me the pronunciation of this word. You cannot say, oh, I didn't know this, or you cannot say this is not a part of your book. Just shut up. You can't say that. You have to answer them. Okay? And I don't need to make you aware. We are living in the extremely competitive world. There are mobile applications, there are online teachers, there are websites, there are YouTube channels, there are native teachers, there are other teachers. A lot of competition is there, and we need to be at the top of our game. You cannot compromise. Your students would not accept a compromise. They can say, I can study better from the YouTube channel. Why am I coming to you? See? So you need to be at the top of your game, and being able to read the IPS script will help you to stay at the top of your game. Okay, so we studied phonemes, syllables, and IPS script. We studied how to read the IPS script. We studied the stress. We studied the pronunciation breakdown, right? And we also studied why it is important to be able to read the IPS script. No? Now, more on this we will discuss in our session. Okay, okay people. So that's all for this session. I'm going to stop this recording and see you in the session now. Okay? Thank you. Bye.